welcome to a very, very exciting post-draft episode of a Colts podcast brought to you by the Horseshoe Huddle and Fan Nation on SI.com, I think is how we're supposed to say it now. My name's Brandon, and I'm joined here by your co-host, my best friend, Andrew Moore. Successful draft this past weekend. We've had some time to absorb that. We've had some time to look at these guys. We've had some time to watch with the next pick and get all excited about these guys that we did pick. How are you doing, sir? How are you feeling after that draft? What's going on?
Listen, the draft stash, it worked. Great draft by the Indianapolis Colts this weekend. Might start becoming an annual tradition, getting the draft stash going, whatever it becomes. But yeah, I'm very happy with the Colts draft this weekend. Attacked positions of need and got the best players available at those positions of need when they came up. We had a trade up, we had a trade back, we had some guys that weren't on the radar that the Colts ended up taking. Very solid weekend for the Indianapolis Colts. How you doing, man?
I am not doing too bad. Before we dig in, I want to make sure we just go ahead and yell at everyone. Tell them to go follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at a Colts podcast, and soon TikTok. We're gonna have some videos. There's gonna be. I don't know what they're gonna look like yet. I don't know how I feel about it yet. But you know what? When a 15-year-old tells you got to get on TikTok, you just listen. So
the over under on myself being in one of those TikTok videos at 0.05, hit the under.
You're going to be in the TikToks. You're not going to have any control over it.
Hit the under.
Your face is on camera. I'm going to send them the video files.
Oh, you're not doing just extra things?
I mean, I'm sure I don't know what they're going to do, but they're definitely going to chop stuff up from the show.
We'll figure it out.
So Andrew, let's dig in because we have a lot to talk about. So, let's try not to make this an hour and a half. Hey, thanks for everybody that joined us or watched a little bit of the draft episode as well. The watch along, those are fun to do. And we had an insane number of people watch that with us. That was a lot of fun. Stats Matt, hello. Stats Matt, also thank him for making an appearance on the show. He is exactly who I thought he'd be. So that was a lot of fun. Andrew,
awesome analyst. Love that Stats Matt was able to join us.
Yep. So Colts draft recap, Andrew. We're going to go through the prospects, whether we like them, dislike them, see how they fit with the Colts. And with our first pick in the draft at pick 53, the Colts traded back because we were at 42, traded back 11.
Mm-hmm.
And still got the guy we would have picked at 42, I believe. Alec Pierce, wide receiver out of Cincinnati. Listen, I love getting us a white boy on the team, white wide receiver. Brandon Stokely, Austin Collie, Griff Whalen. Who am I missing?
Anthony Gonzalez.
My God, great football players. High risk of getting a concussion or 7 playing for this football team, apparently, if you're a white wide receiver. However, this guy seems like he's going to be good. He's big. He's fast. And from what I can tell, just hearing him talk the little bit that he has so far, he's humble and he's not afraid of putting in some work. And I think him and Reggie Wayne are going to be great duo.
Yeah, our colleague Zach Hicks said that if Chris Ballard could create a wide receiver in a lab, it would be Alec Pierce because he's got size. He's 6'3". He's over 200 pounds. He's a guy that runs a 4.4 40, has a 40-inch vertical, very long arms, can go up and high point the ball. You saw that time and time again while he was at Cincinnati. And Chris Ballard even said on Friday night after Pierce was taken, he said, go turn on the tape of the Notre Dame game. And I mean, I watched that one while it was happening, and Pierce absolutely torched Notre Dame all day long. And Notre Dame had a top 5 defense in college football last year. So he's a guy that I think can come in and contribute right away. He's a guy that I think fits opposite of Michael Pittman Jr. very well because, well, Michael Pittman Jr., I think he ran like a 4.5 40. We don't necessarily associate Michael Pittman as being a burner of sorts. He's more of the guy that yeah, he can get a deep ball and he can go up and high point the ball, but he's that physical receiver. He's that guy that can make tough catches on third down. He's a guy that can extend the plays with his yard after catch. And Pierce fits Pittman well because he's the guy that has that speed. He can beat a guy deep. He's able to win those quick one-on-one matchups. I mean, Pittman has that ability too, but in a different manner than Pierce. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see how Pierce starts out camp because he's not a perfect prospect. Otherwise, he would have went in the first round. He does still need work on his route running. It'd be nice because he is a skinny guy. It'd be nice to see him put on 5 to 10 pounds of muscle, get a little bit bigger, because when you're going up against bigger defenders in the NFL, it definitely makes a difference. So he does still need to work on things, but it's going to be exciting to see how he competes in training camp to see if he can get to that number 2 wide receiver role early, because guys like Paris Campbell, Ashton Doolin, guys like Mike Strawn, Desmond Patman, all these guys in that receiver room, they're all gunning for it. It's not just they're going to give it to Pierce. Pierce has got to go out there and earn it. But I'm very excited for the pick. Loved Alec Pierce coming out, one of my favorite wide receiver prospects in this entire draft. And the Colts loved him too. So it was pretty cool to see that they got him even by trading back 253.
And Stats Matt says if Ritter could have hit Pierce against Bama, his name would have exploded even more. Pierce was open most of that game. And what do we always say about SEC defenses, Andrew? That's about as NFL as you could possibly get before you get to the NFL,
right?
Especially Alabama.
Yeah, and in that college football playoff game, Stats Matt's right. Pierce was cooking those quarterbacks on the outside. And when you watch the film, I watched some of it back or saw some clips on Twitter this week. The Bama defense was sometimes assigning 3 men over to Pierce's side, one on man-to-man and another for the underneath and another guy over the top. So when you're a wide receiver and you're getting that much attention from Nick Saban and that Alabama defense, that means something. So very excited about Pierce's prospects and to see how he can work with Reggie Wayne here and start to kind of fine tune the nuances of playing the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and Chris was not shy in saying either, like, we believe this guy can ascend. We think he's already really good, and we think he can be really good. You know what I mean? Like NFL really good. So that would certainly be nice.
Right. And I like what you said about his, you kind of talked about his mentality just from hearing him speak. And the kid is very dedicated to his craft. Yeah. He's a very mature kid. He's very focused on getting better, and he's a very hard worker. You hear that out of Cincinnati from not only his coach Luke Fickell, his quarterback Desmond Ritter said that. I mean, Alec Pierce didn't even start out as a wide receiver. He got recruited as an athlete, and there were thoughts that he might even have to switch to linebacker just to get on the field. Wow. And then there was a new wide receiver coach that came in. He said that wide receiver coach really worked with him and helped make him into the player that he is. And then you saw his great traits just stick out on film. And we always say that the Colts really bet on those high-end traits. Alec Pierce has a lot of high-end traits.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna miss Hard Knocks this year. I am gonna miss that in-season Hard Knocks because it was just a tremendous look inside the locker room, inside the meeting rooms. I mean, stuff like that. I wish Reggie Wayne was gonna be on it. I'm gonna miss that. So got to move it along here, Andrew, to pick number 2. And you said at pick 73, tight end Jelani Woods. Woo! From Virginia. Also played at Oklahoma State. Jelani Woods, like you said, we were debating at 53. We taken Woods or Pierce, and we got them both. Went and got Woods at 73. Frank seemed really excited about this guy, and the excitement, you could tell Chris Ballard. I mean, Chris Ballard was in his flow that night. I mean, he was slinging it around. So confident. Yeah, make the pick. We're gonna get Woods. Yep, go ahead and do the trade. Do the trade. All happened so fast. Chris Ballard was awesome. And we go get a guy that, I mean, could have gone much earlier.
What does Ballard always say? He always says you have to have a little bit of luck in this thing. And the Colts did. The Colts really liked Alec Pierce and they really liked Jelani Woods. And they were hoping that whichever one they took in the second, they were hoping that guy was going to be there in the third as well. And sure enough, Jelani Woods was there at pick 73. So Jelani Woods is he's just an athletic freak. He's 6'7", 255 pounds, and yet he runs a 4.640. When I was looking at their RAS scores or their relative athletic scores, Jelani Woods had a perfect 10. So he was, out of all the tight ends that have been tested since that database was put together, I think end of the 80s, early 90s, he is the most athletic tight end to ever test. And when you put, I saw a tweet even just today where someone was comparing Jelani Woods with Travis Kelce, and almost every single metric Jelani Woods had a better score than Travis Kelce. It's not to say
Yeah.
he's going to be Travis Kelce by any means, but he's got all the physical tools needed there for the Colts to really have that mismatched tight end. The Colts haven't had a mismatched tight end really since Eric Ebron. I mean, Trey Burton's been here. Trey Burton really didn't do that well. Kylan Granson was a rookie last year. I still think that Kylan Granson's going to have a big role this year. But Jelani Woods is just that athletic freak, that big guy who the Colts really think can not only contribute in the passing game, be a mismatch down the field, but also be a more traditional Y tight end as well, where you can put him in line and use his size to block. He is still a little bit raw as a blocker because while he did do some blocking mostly at Oklahoma State, Jelani Woods is also a converted quarterback. He was a quarterback starting out at Oklahoma State, changed to tight end, then transferred to Virginia his final year. So he's had quite the ride. But I think what's
Philly special.
Philly special very well could be on the board. The Indy special, as we'll call it here. But Jelani Woods being a quarterback, he's very smart. I think he even said this after he was picked, that it's easier for him to see the entire offense just because that's how he was raised growing up as a quarterback. You have to learn every single position, every single play. So when you do that, what everyone's responsibility is. It makes the transition a little bit easier. Very, very smart kid. And I didn't think that the Colts would go this route just because I think starting out Jelani Woods is more of a pass catching tight end. And I was thinking they would go with a traditional more wide, but they really think this kid can block. And I think that if they have faith in him, they're going to be patient with him. I feel like Jelani Woods is going to be a big part of this offense, probably sooner than a lot of people think.
I hope sooner than Kylan Granson was. That's my only hope. I think these first two picks also are like, hey, Matt Ryan, here you go, pal. We brought you in and we are going to find a way to help you. We didn't do it in free agency. We didn't bring your buddy Julio Jones in, but we certainly sized up and got some big guys for him to throw to. Back to Pierce, just because I'm stuck on thinking about the starting lineup. I mean, there's talk about could he play in the slot? Could he do that? And Frank's going to move guys around, but I mean, you got to have him and MPJ for the most part on the outsides, right? Just because of the size.
I would think so. Obviously, I mean, Pittman plays in the slot as well. Pierce, right. I'm sure. But even after the draft, they asked Frank Reich directly, where do you see Pierce playing? You move guys around, but do you see him inside, outside? And Frank Reich said, we really want to focus on putting Pierce on the outside. They really think he's going to be that big vertical threat down the field. And when you put Pittman on one side, Pierce on another, it doesn't even matter what side they're on, but then you can use the slot for Jelani Woods on certain plays. Paris Campbell, hopefully he can stay healthy and can really develop into the type of receiver and type of weapon that the Colts thought when they drafted him. And even Nyheim Hines, I really am a huge believer, and I'm telling everybody, if you play fantasy football, you need to get your stock in and take Nyheim Hines probably sooner than you would think. Nyheim Hines is going to have a big year. He's going to be a very vocal point of this offense, whether it's catching passes out of the backfield, putting in the slot, out wide. Nyheim Hines is going to have a big role. And I think that's why maybe you haven't seen the Colts necessarily go out for another wide receiver is because they have so much faith in Naheem Hines that they're almost thinking of him as a running back wide receiver combo guy. So when you have his skill set added to your receiver room, that could make sense. But yeah, I think getting back onto Woods, I think Woods is going to fit that. We're going to see Woods kind of take over some of that Jack Doyle role, where him and Mo Alley Cox will be the inline guys on the running plays, and then you'll see Jelani Woods out wide as well, creating mismatches on linebackers and safeties, just because of how massive of a presence he actually is.
I love it. Feels like the tight end we've been wanting for the last couple of years, especially with, I mean, the tight end position is important to Frank. I feel it's an important position to Matt Ryan. And it's becoming, these freakish athletes are becoming more and more and more important in NFL offenses in general. So,
yeah, and then Stats Matt mentions here, he says the story about how he became a tight end is awesome. And I don't know if you know this, Brandon. So
I do not. Let's hear it.
All right. So back when he was at Oklahoma State, when he was still a quarterback, the Oklahoma State was playing Oklahoma that week. And at the time, Oklahoma's tight end was Mark Andrews, now Pro Bowl tight end for the Baltimore Ravens. Wow. So they asked Jelani Woods if he wanted to play tight end on the scout team to kind of emulate what Mark Andrews could be. All Jelani Woods did was go out and absolutely dominate the practice, and he had about 8 catches for over 100 yards every single practice that week. So the next day, coaches go up to him and ask him, hey, we want to switch you from quarterback to tight end. And honestly, Woods didn't have a problem with it. So the very next day after that practice, he got switched to tight end and never looked back. Seems like it worked out pretty well for him.
I'm not only impressed by the story, but I'm impressed by your ability to not make it last 10 minutes. That was impressive, Andrew. I know. I can't believe it. Ready to move on? Shortly after pick 73 came pick 77, where the Colts picked up offensive tackle Bernhard Raimann. I'm going to call him Bernhard for sure. I don't think I've ever seen Bernhard spelled with an H in there.
His old offensive line coach, Central Michigan, said that no one called him Bernhard because you can't have an offensive lineman named Bernhard, so his name's Bernie.
Bernie, I was going to say Bernie. Yeah, I talked to a lot of Bernhards in my line of work. Not a lot of guys younger than me named Bernhard. So awesome. It's Raimann. Yep. Central Michigan offensive tackle. Should be, I'd say by the end of the year, a starter if he puts in the work. Maybe not right away, but Chris Ballard, I did watch Chris's press conference if you haven't noticed, Andrew. But he did say he sees him as a starting talent guy. But he's obviously going to have to put the work in. And, I mean, left tackle, Pryor's not giving up that job, too easily. Ballard even mentioned a potential, hey, if he fits into a guard position and he's the best, one of the best 5 there, then that's where he'll be. So it's going to be interesting to see how this guy's rookie year shakes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Raimann, I wasn't expecting him to be there in the 3rd round. So I mean, Bernhard Raimann was a guy that not only we had made or ranked him as our 5th offensive tackle in this class, gave him a 1st to 2nd round grade. Dane Brugler, the guy that from the Athletic who makes the Beast. I mean, he had a 1st to 2nd round grade on Raimann. Raymond's his story again. Another guy with a great story coming to the Indianapolis Colts. He actually never even touched a football until he was 13 years old because he lived over in Austria. That's where he's from. That's where he was born and raised. And when he was playing with some friends, started playing some football. Then on his 14th birthday, he started playing football for a local club team over there. Didn't even come to America until he was a junior in high school. So he started playing there, and he actually was a bigger wide receiver, tight end, H-back type player. Got recruited to Central Michigan as a tight end and actually played tight end there for the first 2 seasons of his college career. And then as a junior, his coaches, honestly out of needed him to start playing with the offensive line. And at that time, he was 245 pounds. So he had a tight end body, and they asked him to move to offensive tackle. And what has he done over these past 2 years? He's just worked on his body, worked on his game, and he's become a very nice, solid left tackle. I mean, he's a 6'6". He's now up to 303, 307 pounds, somewhere around there. But Raymond is a guy that's a very good pass blocker. He does still need to work on his run blocking a little bit, but I think that will come with time. But just how dedicated he is to his craft, I think that's what gives me the most confidence in Raymond. Because even on his call to Chris Ballard and Frank Reich after he got drafted, he was telling them, "I can't wait to go win a Super Bowl." Frank Reich said, "You're going to join one of the better offensive lines in the NFL." Raymond, without skipping a beat, said, "Yeah, and it's only going to get better." So the kid's got fantastic confidence. He's a very, very smart kid, and a kid that's very dedicated to getting better. So I think that's a big reason why the Colts took him, is because he's still raw, and the Colts can kind of mold him into the type of player they want. And I really think that Raymond has potential to start at left tackle this season. I think he's going to go into camp. Obviously, they've said they're going to give Matt Pryor the first shot, and I believe that Matt Pryor should get the first shot at the starting job because of how he played last year. But it's not his permanently. Pryor's going to have to go out there and show that he's a better player than Raymond. And if not, Raymond, I'm sure, is going to be nipping on his heels, waiting and trying to take that starting spot away. So honestly, if you're able to get your future left tackle, the tackle that replaces Anthony Costanzo for good in the 3rd round, my God, what a move by Chris Ballard and the Colts.
Yeah, and Stats Matt says his footwork is so good because his arms are shorter, so he uses footwork to make up for it. I love that. Stats Matt bringing in a good one there.
And his arms are a little bit shorter for a left tackle. My mom had read my article, and she said that even though she thought it was weird I was saying an 82-inch wingspan is short for somebody. But to get back on my point, another guy that's got shorter arms for a tackle, Braden Smith, and it's worked out pretty well for him. So as long as you have good footwork and you can move your feet, you can make up for the shorter length in arms and still be a very, very good tackle in this league.
Hey, pick 96, safety out of Maryland, Nick Cross. I think we love this pick.
I absolutely love this pick.
We love this pick.
Nick Cross, man, he's a lightning bolt. He really is. He was one of my favorite safeties in this class. I honestly didn't expect him to be there at 96. I thought he would probably go end of the 2nd round. That's where I was kind of projecting Cross would go. And the Colts, when they saw that Cross was starting to fall, because remember, at this point in the draft, the Colts didn't have a pick. After Raymond, they didn't have a pick till the 4th round. But they saw Cross starting to fall, and Ballard said to his guys, because Nick Cross is a younger prospect, he's only 20 years old, maybe 21 years old. Ballard asked his guys, if we were picking this kid next year,
I don't even think he's 21 is what Ballard said.
Yeah, if we were picking this kid next year, where would we be picking him? And everyone said 2nd round. So let's go get him in the 3rd. The Colts had zero problem giving up their 3rd next year to go and get Nick Cross. And I think partially was because they feel like the Carson Wentz pick that they're getting, the 3rd next year that can become a 2nd, has a really good chance of becoming a 2nd. So that's why they didn't have a problem giving up that 3rd round pick this year. But Nick Cross,
and he said it with such conviction too. I mean, he said it was like he was bragging to the media in that moment. I'm telling you, he said he was giddy after that draft. He looked at the media and said, "I give a 3rd round pick for him. He's going to be 2nd next year." What's it? So there. What about it?
Well, and you think of the guys that the Colts have traded up for. They don't trade up for guys unless they have very strong conviction that this guy is going to be an impact player. I think the past couple years, it was Kari Willis in 2019, who has turned into a very valuable starter for this defense. In 2020, it was Jonathan Taylor. Nothing needs to be said there. And now Nick Cross. So the Colts really love Nick Cross's game. And I think it's important for 2 reasons, because number one, I think Nick Cross fits Gus Bradley's system very, very well. He's a guy that has incredible range, can play deep safety, or he can play up in the box because he's a very good tackler. So he can do that, and he has great instincts, whether he's in the box, whether he's deep, great ball skills, a guy that turns the ball over, which will fit very, very well. And then another thing that we got to think about here is Kari Willis is in a contract year. I know we don't really want to think about it because I think we're both pretty big fans of Kari Willis, but Kari Willis is in a contract year, and he didn't have his best season in 2021. So if the Colts do let Kari Willis walk, or he doesn't come back in 2023, Nick Cross is right there, and Nick Cross will be able to step in next to Julian Blackman, and I think perform at a very, very high level, and you won't see a drop off in performance at all. You might actually see a little bit of an increase there at that safety position.
And I'm a little bugged that you went right into it because I was going to pull up Kyle's comment here. I feel bad for Willis, but Cross brings straight fire to that backfield. And I was going to ask, do you think there is a potential for Cross to kind of push Willis off this football team, or at the very least, drive down the price we would pay to keep Willis? And, you know, who knows, maybe a guy like that wants to stick around, but I assume that you think this guy has the potential to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I fully see Nick Cross. I mean, he definitely has the ability, I think, to supplant Kari Willis, especially if Kari Willis starts to struggle. And Gus Bradley likes to use 3 safeties throughout the game anyway. So we already talked about how Rodney McLeod's probably going to have a decent impact and a decent role. I would put Nick Cross right up there as well, pushing even Rodney McLeod, especially for playing time as that third safety. But then Kari Willis, if Kari Willis starts to slip, Nick Cross, I think, will be right there ready to take over in case that happens.
Is Nick Cross going to lay the pipe like Kari Willis does, though?
Oh, yeah.
Kari Willis is a fucking plumber, brother.
Go ahead and turn on some Nick Cross highlights, my guy.
That's my new.
You're gonna
thing. I'm gonna start calling safeties plumbers. Bob Sanders was a plumber.
I mean, Jim Irsay, you gotta love the man. You gotta love the man's hype, his hope. I mean, he mentioned Bob Sanders and Nick Cross in the same sentence. He's like, I don't want to compare the two, but he kind of did. So, I mean, I'm definitely not going to put Nick Cross on that level, but I think he's a very, very fine player.
Might accidentally hang up Nick Cross's jersey in the rafters instead of Bob Sanders. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I'm excited about that pick, and I do. Matt said something about the video, him finding out after. I did enjoy that. I did not enjoy his press conference where he had apparently no service, and it sounded like people beating the shit out of metal in the background of that video. I mean, I was like, dude, come on. I mean, you're introducing yourself to the indie media, bro. Can we get a little peace and quiet in here? Pick 159. Defensive tackle out of Missouri State, Eric Johnson, has to be the most boring name on the defensive line.
It might be the most boring name, but his Twitter handle, you'll love this. It's the Creature. So he makes up with it with his Twitter handle, and he said it's because when he was younger coming up, there was a kid on his team that was also EJ, because normally he was called EJ, and he was an older guy, a senior, so they couldn't have 2 EJs. So his dad had always told him, when you go on that football field, you play like a creature, and that's kind of where the nickname stuck. We talk about in our pre-draft episodes how Ballard loves the small school guys, and he's gonna get a small school guy. Eric Johnson.
I don't know. Next one's pretty small school too.
Next one's pretty small, but I think Eric Johnson's the one that's going to have the bigger impact right away.
Yeah.
So Eric Johnson is a guy that can play all up and down the defensive line. He can play 3 tech. He can play nose tackle. If you really need him to, he can go out and play defensive end. But Eric Johnson is a guy who really didn't come onto the scene until very, very late, because he is a small school guy. He did play at Missouri State for 5 years, so he's a little bit older as well, but when he played at the NFLPA, Kyle Stewart asked, I wonder if Eric eats kitchen sink chicken wings.
Oh yeah,
it's imperative. You have to eat kitchen sink chicken wings if you want to be on this defensive line. But Eric Johnson really made an impression on the Colts at the Senior Bowl and at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. That's when the Colts really started taking interest in him and hosted him on a visit and things like that. They really think that this kid can play all up and down the defensive line and really make an impact. He's explosive. He's pretty good against the run. He might need a little bit of help and a little bit of refinement in his pass rushing skills. But I think Eric Johnson is a candidate that can come in from day one and possibly be the backup to Grover Stewart at that nose tackle position.
I'd like to hope so. This is where it starts to get dicey. 96 and 59 are a long way apart. So what round was that? You said 4, 5?
Eric Johnson was in the 5th round.
5th round. So I mean, we're starting to get in this area now. Okay. Thank you, Anthony.
Let's get this back on track. But I get what you're saying. So in these later rounds,
go ahead.
In these later rounds, the Colts really bet on traits and what these guys can mold into. That's why you're going to see them take chances on guys that might not have the biggest pedigree, but they stand out as athletes. And as we go through here, every single one of these guys had a raw athletic score of over 9. Not a single one of them was less. All of these guys are phenomenal athletes, have great traits, and that's what the Colts are betting on.
Yep. And at this point, that's what you got to go for. And this year, kind of, I think it was, it might have been Kiefer that asked. I don't remember who asked, but no, it wasn't Kiefer or Holder. I don't remember who it was, but they asked Ballard. They're like, hey, like, you've always been a draft, big athletic types, like in this draft seemed even heavier. Like, was there anything to that? And I mean, not really. It just goes, but in these rounds, that becomes more important,
right?
Because you need the raw athleticism and the talent. And let's see if we can turn you into an NFL player. We good on Eric Johnson?
Yeah, let's move on to 192. I think
192 tight end Drew Ogletree from Youngstown State.
So Drew Ogletree has again, quite the story. He actually started out at Division II Findlay over in Ohio.
My cousin played there.
Did he? Is he teammates with Drew Ogletree?
It would have been close. I mean, no, he didn't last. I don't even think he made it through a whole year, but
I was going to say, maybe we could get Drew Ogletree on the show if you've got a connection.
I don't think so.
But Ogletree played 3 seasons there as a wide receiver, then transferred to Youngstown State and became a tight end. And again, this kid is a big, freaky athlete. I mean, I think the Colts listed him at 6'7". I think at his pro day, he was 6'5". Either way, 6'5", 6'7", big dude, 250 pounds. Runs a very high 40 for a tight end that size. I think he's 4'6", 4'7", somewhere in that area. And because he has that wide receiver background with his very long arms, his catch radius is enormous. And I wrote about this today. Drew Ogletree reminds me a lot of the Mo Alley Cox signing back in 2017. And Mo, I think, was even more raw than Drew is, because Mo hadn't played football since his freshman year of high school. Drew actually was a college football player. So when you're thinking of Ogletree, he's a very raw prospect. I don't think he's going to push the top 3 of Alec Cox, Granson, and Jelani Woods for playing time at all. The Colts took him squarely on his potential. And he said in his interview, he said, I'm a ball of clay. I know I said that about Raymond, but Ogletree actually said, I'm a ball of clay, and they could mold me into however they want me to be. So the Colts do have faith in his athletic traits. They think that Ogletree can block. And I think while he probably won't have a big impact this year, he could be a backup tight end down the line. We'll have to see. The Colts definitely have experience developing these tight ends. And Ogletree, if he sits on the practice squad for a year and some change, you never know. He could be a nice addition as a backup.
I do agree with Kyle here, saying his draft call is awesome. Sounded like he didn't believe he got drafted. That was the one that sounded like he was crying, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was really cool. I love those calls, man. And I'll tell you what, I told myself I was not going to get all hyped up about these draft picks this year. Like I've had too many heartbreaks with some of these picks. And then with the next pick episode, out that motto went out the door quick. But
Right.
yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, Ogletree, I mean, he's got the right makeup. He wants to come in and he wants to work, and I think if he does that and he can improve, and the Colts with Colts coaching and being in the system, I think he could be a solid backup tight end.
This next one's interesting to me. Pick 216 defensive tackle Curtis Brooks out of Cincinnati. So, and maybe it was just Alec Pierce talking on him a little bit as well, and Chris Ballard talking about, there's a reason Cincinnati was winning football games. There's a reason Cincinnati went to the playoffs as a smaller school. And you're going to see guys like an Alec Pierce fall because of that, even because it's a small school. Curtis Brooks, you're going to see fall because of that. But I mean, I didn't watch a lot of Cincinnati football. Okay. But I mean, if you're a starter on a team that's going to the playoffs from a small school, and you're helping contribute to a winning effort like that. And I mean, it's a great program, obviously, or they wouldn't have been there either. But I do think that says something. So I don't have any idea what this guy's potential is, but if he's as underrated as I feel like he could be, I'm very intrigued by the pick.
I think this could be one of those diamond in the rough picks, because Curtis Brooks last year, I mean, Alec Pierce spoke about it, that he was really the catalyst, and Luke Fickell said that on the defense side of the ball, he was probably their defensive MVP. He had 7.5 sacks last year, and I think part of the reason he fell is because of his size. He is a little bit smaller for a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
I think he's only 6'2", 287 pounds. But when you're looking at a team like the Colts, who doesn't necessarily need to have those 6'6", 300-pound linemen, you can find a role in here. And I think Curtis Brooks could be a backup 3 technique to DeForest Buckner. He's a guy that he didn't really come on till late in his college career, so I think that could have been possibly one of the reasons why. But when you're looking at Curtis Brooks and you listen to how he sounded after the draft, the kid said that he's going to remember this and he's going to make the teams pay that passed up on him in the draft. So he's got a chip on his shoulder. He plays a little bit nasty, so that's also good to see. But I think you're going to have a very motivated Curtis Brooks, and a guy that I think can step in and play that Taylor Stallworth like role. He's a guy that can be a decent pass rusher in the middle of the defensive line for you. He's probably not going to be a starter, but if you have Curtis Brooks, he on your defensive line, especially as like a backup, I think he can be a very high caliber backup and give guys like DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart some rest and spell them for a little bit and still be very productive. So Curtis Brooks is the one to keep an eye on as the season goes along.
That'll be interesting for passing downs as well, especially going against a young Trevor Lawrence, a Ryan Tannehill who, he moves better than you think, but at the end of he's getting another year older, and pressure up the middle when you're actually trying to throw the football is a pain in the ass. So, and I can't remember the guy from Houston. I don't even know if that counts. So, what is that quarterback's name? The guy that
Davis Mills.
Davis freaking Mills, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how he's used for sure, and I like that comparison to the Stallworth. And then Tennessee offensive line is horrid as it sits right now. That is good news. All right, and our last pick of the draft, pick 239, cornerback Rodney Thomas II out of Yale. Matt says he seemed like he was on just a normal phone call when he found out he was going to be drafted, which is hilarious. But I assume they just raise him right over there at Yale. He's like, yep, just another day in the office.
Rodney Thomas II, a guy that's got some position versatility. He was actually a safety there at Yale, but the Colts list him at cornerback. So they think that he can make the transition, kind of like Marvell Tell, from safety to cornerback. And he's a guy that I think has a nose for the football. He's a guy that is a pretty decent tackler, I would say, against the run. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at this guy, I think he also has some kick return experience as well. So what do we always talk about? these
Special
guys that
teams.
are on the end of the roster, exactly. They need to be able to contribute on special teams, and I think Rodney Thomas can do that. So we'll see what he can do. I think he's going to come in and try to compete for a roster spot. Again, 7th round pick, so you're taking a flyer on one of these guys, but he went to Yale, so you know he's smart. He's a guy that's going to come in and work. I've heard that he's a very hard worker as well. We'll see if he can contribute and find his way into the back end of the roster.
All right. And that's
what's your draft grade? We got one more. What's your draft grade?
That's the Colts 2022 draft class, draft grade. I mean, you can't go A, I don't think, just because you don't have a first round pick. I mean, I think if you don't have a first round pick, your draft grade is all automatically thrown off the A list. But maybe a B plus. I'd say B plus. I think what gets me, I mean, I think we maxed out for not having a first round pick. I think getting not just one guy at 53 that you probably would have picked at 42, but also then getting the other guy that you would have picked, you could have picked at 53 that you wanted at 53. You're debating. I mean, having the patience and the balls to hang on and still be able to get your guy. I mean, little bit of luck, little bit of genius. And I'm telling you what, and we'll get into it. I don't want to ruin my favorite thing about with the next pick yet, but I'm telling you what, again, Chris Ballard was in the zone.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say B plus to a B. I think the Colts really did well for what was presented to them. I mean, not having a first round pick and still hitting on positions of need within your first 3 picks of wide receiver, tight end, and an offensive tackle, and then coming up and getting that big trade up for Nick Cross, who could be an essential part of this defense for years to come. I think it's very solid. I maybe would have liked to see a couple different picks on day 3, but again, all day 3 picks, you're not targeting anyone specific. You're going for traits. You're going for guys that you think could value potentially help the back end of this roster. So absolutely, I go B plus to a B. Great job by the Colts this weekend.
Tyler says B. Stats Matt B plus. Tyler also says the Dolphins got an A plus, which is exactly what I would expect him to say. Straight Himalaya. B, maybe B plus. So no failing grades.
I think everyone's feeling pretty good about the Colts draft this weekend, and hopefully these prospects can contribute early on and make it look like make Chris Ballard and the Colts staff look like geniuses.
We'll get to Dabo. Okay, Tyreek Hill is not an A plus guy anymore. Not going to be anyway. So what are we moving on to? Some other Colts news, mostly undrafted free agent signings. Not going to go over all of them, but we'll talk about a few that stick out. I think probably I might just roll over and die the first time I see a serious tweet that this Jack Cohn guy is the future.
Yeah, Jack Cohn. I don't even think he'd beat out Sam Ehlinger for the backup job. But he's a smart player. He's not a guy that takes a lot of risks. That's for sure. He seems more in the Jacoby Brissett type area. But I think the 2 guys that stand out to me, offensive tackle Ryan Vandermark from UConn. The Colts guaranteed him. I think it was either 100 and Stats Matt, you're probably going to have to look this up. I think his guaranteed salary was either $175,000 or $190,000. And for an undrafted rookie free agent, that is big time money.
That's Ryan Vandermark.
Yes, Ryan Vandermark, the offensive tackle out of UConn. And wow. Some people thought he was going to be draft eligible. He was going to be picked in maybe the 5th, 6th round, somewhere around there. So the Colts guaranteeing him that much money, I would say that he's probably a lock to make the roster as a backup. I would also like to talk about a running back out of FIU, T.Y. Hilton School, Devontae Price. I think Devontae Price, the Colts looked at a lot of running backs, signed 3 as undrafted free agents. Devontae Price, I could see being the Colts' fourth running back. He could shock a lot of people. I'm seeing in the comments Kyle Stewart talking about Jojo, I think he's talking about Jojo Damon from Nebraska.
Mhm.
That's interesting as well, because the Colts didn't take any linebackers in the draft. We thought possibly they could be looking at that. So, and Stats Matt and Straight Himalaya both say 175,000 guarantee. That's a lot of money for an undrafted free agent. So keep an eye on those.
I like seeing anybody from Purdue. I think the Michael Young Jr. out of Cincinnati is just another testament to that program and what Chris Ballard obviously thought about that program when they went to visit.
Well, fun fact about that is when the Colts went and watched Desmond Ridder and Alec Pierce work out, Michael Young was the other wide receiver in that workout with him. So the Colts got Michael Young as well.
Yeah. So I love that. And then DeForest Rhine, defensive end from Villanova. He can kick rocks. Nobody from that school needs to be on our football team. Just kidding, pal. I know you're watching. Do you think any of these guys right now are like a Colts podcast? Shit, this is the one I should be listening to, right? I think we got any of these undrafted free agents going
If they are, show up
these
in the
guys
chat.
have their ear to the ground.
Right.
Yeah, show up in the chat, boys, if you're an undrafted free agent or a rookie that was drafted. Well, we appreciate all of you. Anybody else on the list that you are interested in?
Let's just move it along to this guy, because I think it's very interesting that the Colts added German defensive back Marcel Dabo to the roster as a part of the NFL's International Player Pathway Program. So with Dabo joining the roster, it's interesting because Dabo does not count towards the 90-player roster limit that they have right now, nor does he count towards the practice squad during the season. If the Colts place Dabo on the practice squad, they basically get an extra spot as a part of this International Player Pathway Program. And Dabo's a guy that he's got good size, good speed. He's a very interesting prospect. The Colts brought him in on a top 30 visit and obviously loved what he could possibly bring to the team. So it's going to be interesting to see him battle with a Rodney Thomas II, with Marvell Tell III, kind of those guys at the back end of the roster, to see, does Dabo make the roster outright? I'm sure he probably will end up making the practice squad if he's not taking a roster spot up on the practice squad. Yeah. I mean, go for it. But it's a very interesting ad, and I'm excited to see what he can do.
I'm really excited. I think that's a cool program that the NFL's got there. And I also think it's cool when teams use stuff like that to their advantage.
I think 4 teams in total, or 4 players are in that program with 4 different teams. So it's a very cool program. You get to bring guys from overseas that play in like the European Football League or NFL Europe, whatever it's called over there, and get to display their talents here at the NFL level.
All right. With the next pick, episode 4. Chris Ballard. Everybody's cheering, chanting after pick 1. And I mean, he sat down, dialed right back in, and said, "We're not done yet. We are not done yet." And I was like, "Oh, let's go!" Oh, I was so pumped up watching that today. And I just thought he was on fire last weekend, and you could just see it in his eyes. He's got the clutch gene. Clutch gene's real, and Chris Ballard has it.
I think what stood out to me was Frank Reich's reaction. I mean, you see Frank Reich after the Pierce pick, he grabs Chris by the shoulders and starts shaking him. But then after the Jelani Woods pick, Frank Reich is pounding the table, and he's like, "I cannot believe this right now." Yeah. The Colts loved both Alec Pierce and Jelani Woods. It reminds me of when the Colts took Paris Campbell and how Frank Reich pounded the table for Paris Campbell. If only he could just stay healthy, I think he could be a fantastic talent for the offense. But Frank Reich wanted more explosiveness on offense, and Alec Pierce and Jelani Woods provide both of that. I thought it was very interesting, though. We always say how the Colts will take best player available. I think we might need to start adjusting that a little bit, because
we went after our needs this year specifically more than ever before at any Chris Ballard draft.
After night 1, I mean, with the next pick, he says, be thinking wide out, tight end, O-line or tackle, safety, cornerback. The Colts' first 4 picks were in that order: wide out, tight end, offensive tackle, safety. So I think the Colts the Colts go
Little
best
bit of
player.
coincidence there, but still.
The Colts go best player available if it seems like, but need definitely plays a factor in that too. They look at need, and it's the best player available at that need. Seemed like how it went this year, but it was just kind of crazy that Ballard named off those 4 positions. The Colts got those positions in that order at all phenomenal talents from dropping where they probably were already projected to be in the draft.
Matt says Ballard walking up to the board and said, "This one's my pick." Hilarious too. I love it. Was like a little bit of a competitive laughing moment, for sure. Like they're all in there doing some serious work, but they're like, "Hey, this is my guy," And they
Yeah,
said,
exactly.
when and I don't remember which scout it was, but he said, when it's the GM's guy, you gotta pay attention and probably gonna go get that guy.
Right. And all of these guys, all these scouts, Ballard, Dodds, all these Colts personnel, they have their guys that they really like
Yeah.
and they go to bat for when they're having these pre-draft meetings. So when they're available, and all the scouts are like this too. When the Colts draft one of their guys, it's a proud moment because you're the guy that did all the work on this prospect. You're the one that was there at the practices, at the games. You were the one that was in contact with the prospects, and it's a good feeling when the team takes your pick, the guy that you had vouched for and fought for.
Nick Cross, they were talking about whichever scouts northeast,
Mike
um,
DeReese.
and he was the one that had Cross, right? Everybody was like, yeah, man, Mike was on one. He was ready. Like he did his homework on that one really well. It was probably the best episode of With the Next Pick ever.
I would say it's up there. It's a fantastic episode.
Jim Irsay on the phone with Alec Pierce says, "Welcome to the Millionaire Club," and I was
he says that every year, and it's just it never gets old. Just say,
I guess I forget that. But yeah,
I love to welcome you to the Millionaire Club. But man, gotta love Jim Irsay, man.
I mean, get the fuck out of here! What a line. And to hear that, like how many thoughts are going through this kid's head? He probably hasn't even gotten to "I'm a millionaire" in his brain yet. But I did think when he said that, I was like, somebody remind this guy he doesn't get a check for a little while. Like Pat didn't know, he's spending money he didn't have yet. I thought that was funny. Anything else about that episode that stood out to you?
It's just a great episode.
The
If you
whole
haven't
great
watched
episode. Watch the whole thing.
if you haven't watched it yet, it's 24 minutes long. So basically, eat some dinner, turn on YouTube, fire up
Lunch
the episode.
break.
It's gonna be a great time.
All right, we got to get into the 2022 NFL draft recap for just the league itself. I don't think I made a thing. So news around the league it is. So the Jaguars. Andrew picks it right. The betting favorite was right. The Jaguars take Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. First 5 picks were all defense as well.
Hasn't happened in a long time. And I think that just, number one, it speaks to the defensive talent in this class. It speaks to the lack of maybe consensus on the top picks, but it also kind of shows you how poor this quarterback draft or class was in this draft. And we'll get to them in a bit. But if it was me playing GM, I would have took Aiden Hutchinson over Trayvon Walker. But the Jaguars again bet on Walker's traits over the production of Hutchinson. So in the end, we'll see who came out with the better pick, whether it's the Jaguars with Walker or the Lions with Hutchinson.
6 wide receivers taken in the first round. I mean, this draft was so deep at so many positions, but wide receiver, just a monster of a position for this draft.
This whole offseason has been the offseason of the wide receiver. I mean, you think about it, Devontae Adams with his big contract, Tyreek Hill getting traded. I'm sure I'm missing some other guys, but we'll talk about the trades that happened in a bit. But then you have like a Drake London, Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson, and Treylon Burks, all taken between picks 8 and 16. So, I mean, just an absolute run on wide receivers. the offseason has been crazy, and you've seen the wide receiver value skyrocket and what teams are willing to give up for these top 5 wide receivers.
9 trades, and you said the first half alone, NFL record. First half of the draft, first 3 rounds?
First round, I meant. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Round.
I was like, that's not very many.
9 trades in the first round alone. That's a lot. That's
a lot for the round.
NFL draft record, and remember it was very calm for picks 1 through 10, and then all of a sudden it's like a bomb went off. That there was like trade after trade after trade after trade, and it was
so
just
fast too.
It was hard to keep up.
The round was so fast. The second and third round, by the time we got done, I was like, oh, that's it. We were having fun. I was like, oh, time flies.
I heard a story that the NFL actually got mad with the Detroit Lions because after they like for the first couple picks take a little bit longer, get the eyeballs on them. As soon as the Jaguars turned in the pick, the Lions, I think 30 seconds later, turned in the pick for Aiden Hutchinson. NFL was not pleased about that. Dan Campbell said what what Mike Tomlin always says. I think you have the voice for that one.
We do not care.
We do not care. Lions wanted Aiden Hutchinson, but I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, listen. If the NFL doesn't like it, don't walk out there and announce the pick.
Well, it's as soon as they turn the pick in, they tell the teams, they have a different channel of the teams, so the teams know that as soon as the pick goes in, it gets transferred over, so that way they can immediately do that. But yeah.
That's fine. We were getting all the picks before they happened anyway. Thanks, Internet. You know what I mean? So who gives a shit? Just don't announce it yet. You're the commissioner. You can do whatever you want. You're announcing all these ones anyway. Just wait. Just take a minute. Who can, don't care. Quarterbacks fall. One quarterback taken in the first round, Kenny Pickett by the Steelers.
Basically just goes next door because the Steelers and Pitt share a facility. So he, instead of walking in one door, he walks in a different one. So I think I'll ask this question at the end. Let's move on to the next ones.
Okay. No other quarterback taken until the third round. Desmond Ridder went to the Falcons at 74. Malik Willis to the Titans at 86, and Matt Corral to the Panthers at 94.
54 picks in between Pickett and Ridder. That is, I don't remember a draft ever being like that since I've been following it closely. But I wanted to ask you, which of these 4 quarterbacks is in the best situation out of Pickett, Ridder, Willis, or Corral?
Pickett or Willis?
I'd probably go with Pickett, to be honest with you. Not just because he got picked in the first round, but when you look at the other organizations, I mean, the Falcons,
not good.
And they're not great.
The Titans are good, but that offensive line's not great, and he's going to be sitting there a while.
And there's already, it seems like, drama because, fabricated drama, both with Ryan Tannehill saying he's not going to mentor him. I don't think it's his job to mentor him, but the media is all up in frenzy. And Matt Corral was picked in the third round. I mean, shoot, if the Panthers have a bad year next year, they're going to be picking in top of the first round. It could get one of the better rookie quarterbacks in a stacked 2023 quarterback class. So I honestly think with Kenny Pickett and the type of organization the Steelers have, I think Pickett's in the best spot. What a wild draft, man.
Yeah. It was a good one. I didn't pay much attention after Friday night. So I really didn't. I had to get the recap, at the end of the day Sunday. But let's go some more news around the league, Andrew. The Titans trade A.J. Brown to the Eagles for a first and third round pick. And all I have to say is thank you, Titans. Thank you. I mean, I would have loved to have gotten a guy like that, but get him the hell out of our division. That's fine with me. And they agree to an extension, 4-year, $100 million contract extension, $57 million guaranteed.
I think the Colts are happier that A.J. Brown is out of the division than they would have been if Derrick Henry would be out of the division. Because
Oh, 100%.
I mean, I don't think the Colts are afraid of Derrick Henry. I mean, we've seen the Colts bottle up Derrick Henry for a couple years now. But AJ Brown is the Colt killer. I mean, it seems like every time the Titans and the Colts play, AJ Brown would go off for over 100 yards and a touchdown, just absolutely destroying that Colts secondary. So I mean, good for Jalen Hurts. He now has AJ Brown to pair up with Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
And thank God AJ Brown isn't in the AFC South anymore.
Yeah, I'm all about it. That's fine with me. That's a guy that even if you hate the Titans, you know that guy, is a problem. Ravens trade, and boy, was there some drama about this. Ravens trade wide receiver Marquise Brown and a 3rd-round pick to the Cardinals for a 1st-round pick.
Yeah, apparently Hollywood Brown requested a trade after the season, saying he wasn't happy. So this was in the works for a while. But Lamar Jackson, who people forget has not signed his extension with the Baltimore Ravens yet, was not happy about this trade being made. And he does not. I mean, I think they might have gotten a wide receiver later in the draft. Not 100% sure on that. But yes, as Stats Matt said, I think we all know why the Cards made this trade now. We'll get to that in a second. But it kind of shakes up the AFC North. It gives more firepower to the NFC West. But Lamar Jackson not happy there in Baltimore.
Wow. I didn't. No, I didn't. Never mind. Saints signed former Chiefs safety Tyrann Mathieu to the team. I don't know any details about the money. Apparently, Andrew doesn't either.
Hasn't been announced yet, but I mean, Tyrann Mathieu is from New Orleans, went to LSU, heads back home to join the Saints. That secondary with him, I think Marcus Williams is still on there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously Lattimore, Gardner Johnson's on that secondary. So it's a stout defense over there in New Orleans.
Boy, do I love this next headline. The Cardinals wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, suspended 6 games for violating the NFL's PED policy. I've never once in my life called this man the best wide receiver in football, and this just gave me all the validation I needed. Okay. I mean, I don't know any of the details. It probably, somebody spiked his protein or whatever, but break the rules, get in trouble.
He said he just wasn't careful enough about what he was putting into his body. I mean, what is the truth, what isn't, we won't know, but that's a big blow to the Cardinals offense, because while they do have some pieces with AJ Green, now Hollywood Brown, Zach Ertz, Rondale Moore, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is still DeAndre Hopkins.
And Falcons and defensive tackle Grady Jarrett agreed to a 3-year, $51 million extension with $34.5 million guaranteed.
They could pay him, but they couldn't keep paying Matt Ryan. So again, the Falcons really, they're just hitting the reset button. We'll see if Grady Jarrett lives out that contract extension. I'm not sure he's going to.
Bears release quarterback Nick Foles. Colts media starts raising eyebrow.
You think Nick Foles gets signed as the backup to Matt Ryan if Ellinger doesn't have a good preseason?
I don't know.
Because his contract, since he got released, it's not bringing on a bad contract anymore, and we both know how much Frank Reich loves Nick Foles.
He does. I don't know. We'll see. I doubt it, but would be interesting. International games for 2022, week 4, Vikings versus Saints in London. Week 5, Giants, Packers in London. Week 8, Broncos, Jags in London. Shocker there. Week 10, Seahawks, Buccaneers, Germany. Week 11, 49ers, Cardinals, Mexico City. Glad not to be on this list.
Yeah, I'm glad that I don't have to giving up a Colts home game for one of these international games. But The Germany ones is kind of significant. First game the NFL is playing in Germany, so
Yep.
that'll be fun to watch. And then with more London games, I know we talk about this every year, but we're going to do it again. When is there going to be an NFL team in London or just overseas in general?
And why is Trevor Lawrence going to be pissed that it's his team that has to pack up and move to Europe?
Oh man, would you say by 2025? Or is that too early? Would you do 2030? I think it's inevitable at this point.
2027. Oh, it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right along with 18-game season too. It makes it easier because you can schedule the buys, and, to work out more favorably for the teams that have to travel. I mean, but the only thing I don't like about it is that team's going to get like a block schedule, I would assume, like 4 at home in a row, 4 away in a row, stuff like that, which is unfair to the teams they're playing and them, kind of. It's an interesting situation, but it is going to make the NFL money, so it will happen. And that is as simple as it is. Sorry, guys. Sorry, kids, to ruin the NFL for you, but it is a business. And that is how it works.
I agree.
Listen, Irsay answer that question on Pat's show. Okay. I need to go see Irsay on that. I missed a few things on the Pat McAfee show recently that I am wanting to catch up on. Andrew, where can the people go find us on social media to make sure that they're getting any updates about episodes, figuring out, hey, this is when the episode is, to see Andrew not tweet very often? Where do they go?
They can go to @a Colts podcast on Twitter, Instagram, where Brandon hardly posts anything, and Facebook. Where
Andrew doesn't know how often I post on Instagram. He doesn't have an Instagram anymore.
I mean, I could see it on our website, acoltspodcast.com. There you go.
That was smooth. That was good. You never look at that either.
I do from time to time.
Yeah, from time to time. Okay. And hey, if you're curious about those guys that we just drafted, any draft guide still out there. I don't know if the promo code still works. Promo code draft, take $1 off. Probably does. If you want to read up a little more on the guys that we drafted or anybody that you're interested in. But anything else for the fans, Andrew?
Fun draft. Well, suspects do, but it's an exciting time for Colts Nation. Go Colts.
Go Colts.
Let this moment become a cherished memory. And then remember, a legacy is only worthwhile when there is a future to fuel. God bless you, and God bless football.